Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Um, Welcome all to the episode 6 of the Knowledge is Wealth series. This episode is titled C.R.E.A.M. Cash ruled everything around me. Dollar bill.
You know what I'm saying?
Since we're talking about financial literacy, we're going to quote from the Robert wanted to quote that financial literacy, financial education leads to financial transformation. I mean, I think that's a deep quote. And we have our brother.
Welcome all today. This is Isa Abu Isa. Coach Gaines. And rich people own libraries, poor people own big TVs. Poverty begins in the mind before it reaches your hands. And knowledge is wealth. And welcome to another episode.
Welcome to another episode.
We're going to follow up with last week's episode. If you didn't get a chance to tune into that one, we advise you that you tune in to God's money versus the fiat currency. It was a real interesting show. And now we're going to follow that up with another article dealing with the intricate details behind gold trading. Because like we said, gold and silver is something that is a currency that's been around for centuries, and it is used in the Islamic monetary system. It's also used all over the world. It's not the dominant currency as you should see, but it's still used as something like that. So what does it happen when people want to invest in gold? How do that happen? Or people want to buy gold or for gold companies? We're going to look into that today, inshallah. Hopefully, just so that you know, gold trading is very common and is prestigious in most of societies. Recently, many packages or schemes that are related to gold have appeared and developed in Malaysia, but they are subjected to questions and disputed, whereas most of them are not free from riba. Now, whenever it comes to contracts, not even just contracts, but business period, and it comes to transactions, the main thing that the Muslim have to pay attention to is riba. All right, that's the main thing. That's one of the main components that we have to worry about when dealing in business. Period. From our financial education standpoint, is riba. Would you brothers agree?
Without a shadow of a doubt. That's the question. When everybody does something with a bank or whenever you go, you be like, is it interest on that? Is it interest on that? It's the first thing that comes to your mind because that's like the main thing that you're worried about.
Exactly. So if that's the main thing, then that's something that we should arm ourselves with the education of how to really understand what riba is.
And the threat is severe for riba.
Okay.
You know, and it's such a severe threat that we should fear it. We should fear coming anywhere near it because of the threats. From Allah and His Messenger. As far as riba is concerned.
Exactly. But there's a lot of people who believe that the currency that we are using currently now, which is the dominant currency, has riba attached to it. So hopefully we'll be able to shed some light on that in the coming shows to really deal with that, inshallah. Just to continue a little bit, we're going to go into the definition of riba. I know we did it last week, but we're going to do it again. Some more additional information here, especially you Muslims pertaining to trade, transaction, everything. You need to know this. This is really viable information. One thing you need to know is the objectives of the Sharia through its commands and prohibitions are to bring benefits and to avoid harms and chaos. Okay, that's one of the objectives of the Sharia. We're always looking for how can we ascertain benefit and how can we avoid a harm. All right, so the Sharia is not one of those things that just wants you not to do anything. Go in the closet, you can't move around. Allah just want to restrict you. No, that's not the understanding. It's mercy within the Sharia. There are many permissible things to do. Actually, there are more things that are halal than are haram. Yeah. And this is known, and all of the ulama, when you read their books and stuff like that, they go into this about there are more things which Allah has made permissible than He has made things which are impermissible.
It's almost like preventive medicine, the Sharia. Okay. It's almost kind of like that, if that makes it clear. I mean, it's like the things that's in the Sharia is kind of like in a way of preventing something from coming about. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of this stuff is there so you won't go that direction. It doesn't necessarily want that to get punished, but it's there kind of to prevent these things from happening.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Okay, so there is a principle in usul fiqh that they state al-aslu fil ashya' al-ibaha hatta yadillu dalil ala man'u, meaning the original rule for all things is permissibility till there is evidence against it. So, for example, if I walk into an ice cream parlor, for example, right? All types of ice creams that they have, that they're offering or selling, is permissible for me. at that point, unless there is an evidence, a text that comes in that say, no, you can't eat this type, or this certain type is not. But the origin is permissible. If I go to any store, anything like that, the origin is that it's permissible for me to engage in that.
So can we say that the thing that's made haram is specific, the things that's halal is more general?
Exactly. It's more general, that things are more broader when it comes to those things being permissible versus those things being impermissible. And that's beauty, because the fact that the haram is actually restricted, it makes it easy for us to memorize it. It makes it easy for us to obtain it, and we know how to avoid it because we know this is restricted.
Yeah, it doesn't cause stress either.
Right. Exactly.
That's ease. That's
the ease.
Mercy and ease.
So Islam strictly prohibits riba, okay, gharar, deception, fraud, gambling, and seizing the property of other people in unjustified ways. Okay, so the article we're going to be reading will discuss a sell contract of gold that is related to riba. Now, the reason why is because if we're talking about gold is one of those idols, if you paid attention to last week's episode,
commodity,
that deals with the riba wet items, okay? And because it's one of those commodities, then we have to look at gold, and whenever we deal with gold, we have to look at riba, meaning we have to make sure that gold and the transaction of the gold is free from the riba. All right, so that's what we have to make sure. So riba is among one of the greatest sins. In other words, it's a major sin. It's not a small sin, it's a major sin, where Allah and the Prophet ﷺ has declared war against its practitioners. Therefore, a brief understanding of riba, including how it takes place in transaction, is very crucial for all of us to know. Okay? When you buy a commodity from the store, when you go engage in certain things, you might say, well, I'm just a layman. What do I need to know about riba? No, you need to know. You need to know whether or not you can purchase this thing, whatever you're using, those commodities that have riba associated with it. And we gave you the hadith, which was easy. The Prophet ﷺ mentioned about 6 things, which serves as a yardstick, and they called them riba wet items. Okay, we're going to hear the hadith again, but it mentions that. Literally, riba means a ziyad. Okay, it means something extra or an increase. Okay, that's what it normally means. Technically, it is defined as an extra charge on the debt payment or an exchange of riba wet items that had a similar illah on different rates. Riba can be divided into 2 categories, which is riba diyun and riba al-buyu. So let's go get an understanding of that. So, for example, riba al-duyun, what is that? What do that mean? That means debts. Riba normally takes place when we deal with debts. If I owe you something, for example, what happens if you don't pay me back on time?
Okay, so it'll be like so we basically it's like the old loan sharks in the hood. When you go to the old head with the Lincoln, and you basically be like, look, let me get $200 till next week. Like, all right, but I'm gonna put $50 on that. So if you're late, he keep put another $50 on it. So that's how that would be.
Or even when your landlord puts a stipulation in the contract that
there's a penalty.
There's a penalty for you to pay a late fee, which now adds to that.
Yeah.
You understand? So adding to the debt at a time where it exceeds the actual time, deferment or anything like that, is extra. That extra is pragmatic in the Sharia. That's, that where it might cause some problems to happen too. And you can see the leniency within the Sunnah, where Allah Jalla wa'ala rewards, and even the Prophet ﷺ always talked about how Allah rewards the individual who gives and extend the time for the person who's the lender. I mean, not the lender, but the one who took the loan, the debtor. Give him.
So we basically call it late fees then. That's what people call it, right?
Yeah, the late fees is actually is problematic in the Sharia. All right, so Allah talks about this. He says, okay, where is the extra fee charged on the debt because the debtor has deferred in his or her payment? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned in the Quran that riba is primarily related to ad-diyun, which means debt. Thus Allah Jalla wa'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu la ta'kulu riba ad'afan mudha'afa. O you who believe, do not take riba doubled. Okay, this means compounded riba. All right, and multiplied. But fear Allah so that you may be successful. Okay. This verse can be found in Surah 3, verse 130. The essence of riba is time value of money. We'll have our brother Coach explain this to you in a minute. As well as extra payment charged on the debt due to the deferment of payment. The essence of riba is time value of money.
Yeah, so I mean, basically what he said. I owe you rent already. It's $1,000. It's $500. Whatever the rent is. All right, you come 2 weeks past the 10th. 14 days. Now there's a late fee. The only reason I'm charging you, the only reason that money has value that's owed is because of the time of the delinquency of the time. You were supposed to bring it this day, but because you didn't bring it this day, I charge you extra. That's the essence of riba.
That's the essence right there. You see it? As well as extra payment charge, okay? The original methods are add and defer, which means an extra amount of payment in consideration of extra period given to settle the debt. Therefore, a dominant riba is the continuous charging of an extra value on the debt amount. However, it is questionable whether riba that is not al-da'af al-mudha'afa, like in the ayat, non-compounding, but with a few increase on the debt amount is permissible or not in the contract. Okay? For example, here they use, because this is a Malaysian article, they use money that is used in Malaysia, which is the money currency used in Malaysia is ringgit. All right? So the ringgit, for example, if a person was to owe 100,000, has to pay back 1,100, although he or she does not delay in the debt payment. In other words, I paid on time, but there's still an extra 100 being added on.
That's hard body, man.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. Just for owing it.
Just for owing it.
Yeah, just for owning it. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So
And they call that service fees and stuff like that. They try to change the names and things like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
So the answer is still regarded as riba, whether it is compounded or not, as long as there is an increase in the total debt amount. So in other words, any increasement is that riba? That's what the argument is here. Or is it associated with deferment, delaying?
Yeah, is the charge associated with time?
Exactly.
If because you're late, or because for whatever your reasons are, you don't have it to pay it now. So because you're not paying it now,
I'm going to charge you for that.
Extra for that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then the whole idea of needing money, and I'm a lender. I have a surplus of wealth. I have a surplus of commodities.
Right.
You need access to that for your need. You want to borrow that.
Right.
And just for borrowing that, just for it leaving my inventory,
I'm going to
charge you for
interest
that.
Even though I paid for the inventory anyway.
Yeah.
But now you're charging me for using the inventory that I already paid to use. That's basically what they're doing. I mean, if like for example, this is the shirts or whatever, this is the inventory. I come use this inventory. I already paid you to use it. But now you're going to charge me an extra fee for even just coming there using the inventory. That's where the 1,100 would come from, because the 1,000 was borrowed, but the person had to pay back 1,100, not even late. So where's the 100 coming from? The $100 is being paid because you're using their actual service, but you already owe them. You already made an agreement. Exactly.
Now you're trying to put another agreement with the condition of time.
Even though we already did the first agreement, but then you bring another one just to get more money out of them.
But I was trying to paint a picture of what does it look like when you let somebody borrow your money. It's like you let them borrow anything.
Yeah.
You have enough of it to lend for a period of time. You get me?
Yes.
It's not affecting my day to day. I'm still paying my bills. I'm still moving around, and I have extra to lend you so that you can operate with it. You see the concept here.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when you pay it back, and you give it back in the same manner that I gave it to you with no increase. This is a ta'awun. This is working together.
Well, that one will be permissible.
That's the permissible one.
Yeah, exactly.
But the other one where, just because you borrowed it, just because it left my inventory, soon as it leaves my inventory and you bring it back, sound or not, in the same place or not, I have to give you extra added value. This is impermissible.
And that's normally with Western finance anyway. So if you want to know what we're trying to do in this show, we're trying to run neck to neck a little bit Islamic finance as well as Western finance. It is financial literacy, so we should look at both of them and see how they pretty much parallel and bring some harmony between the both, inshallah. So riba al-buyut, I'm going to read this one here. Many people do not know the meaning of riba al-buyur. And it's funny, right? Because a lot of the Muslims, and sadly to say, I'm included. I'm not going to exclude everyone. I'm not the one that's the teacher and pointing my finger. But a lot of us, when we don't really pay attention to Sahih Bukhari, Kitab al-Buyur, buying and selling. When it comes to those ahadith dealing with trade transactions, we don't really pay attention to that stuff. Sales contracts. Even if you look at Malakas al-Fiqh, it has roughly about almost 7 to 10 chapters that deals with transactions. You know what I'm saying? We don't really pay attention to that stuff.
Well, that goes to show
and
you
go ahead.
that the Western education and also the Islamic or Eastern education have basically, the school systems have basically failed in teaching their people exactly how to use money and how to do business. Because at the end of the day, you find that even when I was overseas, you didn't find people talking about finances, Islamic or otherwise. You just didn't see it being taught to everybody about how to do business. It just wasn't taught.
And it's looked at only the financial experts talk like this.
Yeah.
Only the people who have degrees in finance or have some accounting education. This whole conversation is reserved for those guys, and that's a misconception because we're doing business every single day. Where we can be harming somebody or we can be causing harm to come on ourselves just for the lack of information.
And another strong point is that our hadith in the ayah is not talking to just scholars or students of knowledge. It's actually talking to everybody. So that the knowledge of it you need to know as well. So you need to know what you can do and what you cannot do. So that's important to understand. Even during the reign of Umar ibn al-Khattab, he would not even let a person come into the marketplace to begin to do transactions unless he knew the rules and regulations pertaining to transactions. Just show you how well the leader would guard these certain things. So I actually mentioned here, what is riba buyur? What is this selling contract? It is a riba in a sell contract or in the exchange of those ribawi items that the Prophet ﷺ mentioned in the hadith, those commodities that can have or incur riba on it. It is also known as riba as-sunnah. This riba is not stated in the Quran, but has been practically mentioned in the Sunnah. There are many authentic hadith that discuss the issues of riba that is related to ribawi items. Riba on the ribawi items happens when one of the conditions in the sale contract of the exchange of the ribawi item is not fulfilled. All right, and this is what our brother we're going to read in the next part of this. So that's what you know, that there is sell contracts. So we do sell contracts on a daily basis. When you buy your clothes from Macy's or when you go buy certain things, if it's not an item that falls under the ribawi items. So what are the ribawi items? He's going to mention the hadith soon so that you can know. We talked about it last week about those 6 main items that incur riba on them, inshallah.
So gold trading and deferment method is prohibited because it is riba al-bayu, a bayur. Amongst the well-known authentic hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ, what are related to riba al-bayur is one that is quoted by Ubad ibn Samit.
The Prophet ﷺ said.
I just wanted a little more. It just bounced off the screen. The Prophet ﷺ said, gold for gold, silver for silver, wheat for wheat, barley for barley, dates for dates, and salt for salt, like for like, equal for equal, and hand to hand. If these goods differ, then you may sell as you wish, provided the exchange is hand to hand. The hadith describes the hukam of sale contract exchange of ribawi items.
Hukam is the ruling.
The hukam is the ruling. It does not put any condition for a normal sale contract, which involves non-ribawi items. So notice there's a distinction between ribawi items and non-ribawi items. Keep that in the back of your minds. It does not put any condition for a normal sale contract, which involves non-ribawi items, such buying rice with money. The transaction can be made on cash, deferred payment, or advance payment. If the commodities differ, then you may sell as you wish, provided the exchange is hand to hand on the spot.
Okay.
We need to stop right here and just cover those details a little bit because it's very important. This is a very important principle.
Now, my first question would be, so maybe you can explain to the audience, when you say non-ribawi items, so anything outside of those 6 items mentioned in the hadith, then riba couldn't. These are items that riba can fall on. And the other ones outside of that, riba cannot fall on those items. That's what we're saying.
And riba bayur.
Last week we brought that there are differences of opinion from the different schools. Some say that those 6 items, like the Zahiri method, they say that's it. Only these 6 items that's mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ is where riba can be occur. Other schools of thought say no. They say that actually anything that falls under saying similar thing for the yardsticks of these each items that falls into that bracket, then riba can occur. Then every riba would item.
And that's where we get to the point of our conversation, even leading up to the show.
Yeah.
Can riba be applied to fiat currency?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because fiat currency isn't gold, silver,
Barley.
It's a whole nother item. Is it a ribawi item?
That's it.
But due to the customs of the people, it's now taking the ruling as gold and silver, fiat currency. So how much weight does that hold? What's the conversation amongst the people of knowledge in finance? I mean, in religion, in Sharia, and then in finance. How are we looking at that? So
Basically,
that brings my question.
Can the rulings of these 6 commodities be applied to the fiat?
So now, if I want to buy gold from you with cash, and I want to defer the payment, if you don't believe that the cash is a ribawi item, according to these principles, you can do that. But if you don't believe that if you believe that cash takes the same ruling as gold and silver, then it can be problematic for trading in a deferred way.
Well, actually, one of the conditions to even buy gold is that you have to pay it with cash. So he's going to mention that. One of the conditions to even buy gold, there's 2 conditions. One of them is the payment has to be made of cash.
Okay.
All right, you can go.
So did we come to any type of conclusion as to whether or not fiat currency is a ribawi item or not?
I like to say, wait till you finish the article and give you some more.
I mean,
give you some more perspective
because you gotta get more perspective on it.
You gotta get more perspective to see where they're coming at. See, sometimes it's really good when there's a difference of opinion. It's not the fact that it's just a difference of opinion. One thing you learn from difference of opinion is you learn how they are extracting it, and this is the beauty of those people who are mujtahid. What are they taking? What's the evidence that they're basing on? What's the rulings and principles that they're extracting? Where are they arriving their conclusion from? If you can get the insight into that, that'll be mashallah, because then now you can see it. Henceforth, that's why C.R.E.A.M, what did he mention about ikhtilaf? He says one thing about ikhtilaf, he says that actually when 2 people who are arguing based off of proofs, while they both came to their conclusion, they are in agreement, but outwardly they are in a disagreement. But they are in agreement in the methods and the way that they came to their conclusion, because they're both using evidence to support their conclusion.
I think what Coach is where the issue of the urf, the issue of what's commonly used amongst the people.
How much weight
does that have when we're dealing with this type of hadith? Because now cash is the thing that's replacing kind of salt, barley.
Yeah, but understand,
it's replacing
this article
gold.
sheds some more light on
No,
it.
it does.
And if we wait, we can probably come across and see what
I'm just bringing that out so that people know what the discussion is.
Exactly.
Okay.
The point we're trying to bring out.
The scholars have agreed that if gold is exchanged with gold, silver with silver, and wheat with wheat, 2 conditions must be filled. They must be on the same value of weight. The payment must be made on cash.
So there are the 2 conditions. So if I want to buy gold for gold, I want to exchange gold for gold, wheat for wheat, silver for silver, and the rest of the thing you mentioned, then I have to do what? I have 1. They must have what? They must be equal. They have to be equal in weight and in value. Okay, that must be there. And then 2, it must be what? Made the payment of cash.
Yes, cash made with it.
I want to bring this up before we go on. Something about that me and you discussed. I think all 3 of us, but I think it was maybe me and Abu Zaid. The issue of the hand-to-hand, the preventive measures that the Sharia has, like the preventive medicine. Because say if I say, all right, I want to buy this gold from you, and I buy it deferred, and it's going to come to me in a week later. By the time that gold gets to me, the value that I paid for might have been changed. And it might not be how people used to bite the gold, and they had the gold check, they used to check the gold, make sure. If it's not hand-to-hand, and that shows you the preventive measures, if it's not hand-to-hand, that by the time it gets to me, it could be a totally different thing that I paid for.
Well, that's the reason why the Prophet was selling prohibited.
You know what I'm saying?
That's the reason why the Prophet was selling prohibited.
Yeah.
So let's move
He made a
along.
stipulation. Go ahead.
In the case if there is a difference in the types of items in the transaction, but with similar reason of being ribawi, such as being currency in exchanging gold for silver, and being weighable, and a staple food in exchanging wheat for barley, then the condition is that the transaction must be made on a cash basis and on the spot, even though the exchange does not require to be at par of value and of weight. For example, it is permissible to exchange 100 grams of gold for 2 kilograms of silver, or a kilogram of dates with 2 kilograms of wheat. But the transactions must be on a cash basis and on the spot. but not by installment or deferred payment. During the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the gold currency was dinars, and its price fluctuates among 8, 10, or 12 dirhams of silver. There was a narration of making settlement in different currencies between gold and silver, which involves the exchange of currencies as mentioned in the hadith of Abdullah ibn Umar, and the credit sale transactions of his camel, and the debt payment with different currency, gold dinar versus silver dirham. Some would claim that the prohibition of deferment on gold trading is valid only on the exchange of gold with gold. However, this claim is not in line with the other hadiths that report the prohibition of gold, silver, and currency trading on deferred basis.
That was a mouthful.
Yeah, so let's slow down.
Yeah,
Let's give
that
it
was
to
a
them.
mouthful.
Let's break it down, man.
That was a mouthful right there.
Let's break it down. Break it down.
Prayer starts there in the case of. Yeah.
So we're gonna start back over where we started reading, and we're gonna try to break it down a little bit. In case if there is a difference in the types of items in the transaction, but with similar reason of being ribawi, such as being currency in exchanging gold for silver, and being weighable staple food in exchanging wheat for barley, then the condition is that the transaction must be made on a cash basis and on the spot, even though the exchange is not required to be par of value and weight. Okay. So if you're on the spot, you have a lot more room. Mm-hmm. I guess kind of like to for things not to be totally even, and you're not trading within the same commodity. So I'm trading gold for silver, or wheat for barley, mm-hmm. and we're on the spot. We can trade, and things doesn't have to be, basically you could have paid for it. You could make a wholesale type of transaction where you're selling it to a retail person. There may be a market value wholesale, and then now there's a person in front of you who he may spend a little more than what the value you paid for it because he's buying less, but he's a customer, so that's more of a retail transaction. There's a lot more flexibility there with this ruling
to make those type of
to make that type of barter.
Yeah, but the main thing is that you can observe that type of barter,
and everybody's there to agree. Everybody walks away,
and everybody walks away
satisfied.
Pleased. So that's one of the things we can observe each other.
Yeah, exactly.
Making that type of transaction.
I can look at the dates. I can look at the barley.
So being on the spot takes some of that responsibility off of things being equal value, pound for pound.
Pound for pound, weight for weight. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And such being currency in exchanging gold for silver, and being weighable staple food in exchange for wheat for barley, then the condition is that the transaction must be made on a cash basis on the spot, even though the exchange is not required to be a part of value and weight. For example, it is permissible to exchange 100 grams of gold for 2 grams of silver, or 1 kilogram of dates with 2 kilograms of wheat. But the transactions must be on a cash basis and on the spot, not by installment or deferred payment. Now, why would you say not? Why would this prohibition?
Now, this is my question.
What would the wisdom be?
This would be my question, right? So, is this article saying that, for example, say if I have my dates and they barley, whatever they got, right? Is the article saying that cash to be involved in that transaction, or can I just say, here goes some dates and you give me my barley? Or does cash has to be involved in that transaction?
No, they're talking about 2 different items actually being sold within the same. So if it's a food item, 2 different food items, and you exchange them, then cash had to be involved in the actual buying of it. And then they actually saying that it must be either on the spot, and it cannot be deferred or an installment.
No, so my question would be is that this is my question. That way I can understand it, plus maybe the people can understand. I'm a little slow, be patient with me. No, I'm saying, look, right, you got dates, and a person got whatever they got. Apples and oranges, whatever, something that we use every day. Apples and oranges here in America, right? Got apples, he got oranges. I say, look, man, I like those oranges. He likes my apples. So I say, all right, well, we both know the value of apples and oranges in our own land, right? So I say, well, I know these certain amount of apples will equal up to whatever, how many oranges he's going to give me.
Yes.
We go like this, and he gives me.
Yes.
What I'm saying is at that point.
That's permissible.
That's permissible.
That has to be on the spot.
What is the cash being talked about for, though? Because if I can just do that, why do I need cash to be involved in the conversation? You understand what I'm trying to say here? Make that clear, because that's being lost in the translation. If you understand my point.
I understand the point we're saying. It's saying that it must be paid with cash.
So I can't just give him apples, he gives me oranges, and it's over.
No, that's not what the transaction is.
So what's the transaction?
See, it is you exchanging 100. Right? Look what he's saying. He's saying you're changing 100 grams of gold with 2 grams of silver.
Yeah.
Just because you're doing the exchange, right? For that, you still making a transaction.
Yeah.
So
I know that.
So how you purchasing it?
No. What I'm saying is that look, the point I'm making, right? They have the thing called, we know it's different types of bartering, right? I can literally barter with you I can want that particular thing from you, just give you something I have without cash. I can literally do that.
But that's not what this is saying.
That's
here.
not what this is.
That's using
Yeah.
dates for cash.
Yeah, that's not what this is saying.
They're
here.
using dates for cash. They're using gold.
So
and
this
silver
is
for
talking.
cash.
This is talking about a whole different type of bartering system right now. Because it's not talking about the normal barter system that we see all the time, where you have something I like, I got something you like, and we just trade off.
It's including it.
Okay.
It's giving you the rules of engagement on how to do that.
Exactly.
It told us that what you just said is permissible.
Yeah, I'm talking about without cash, because you could do that without cash.
You could do that without cash, and now it's saying that doing that is a form of cash.
Okay.
And or cash.
Or okay.
Right.
As long as that's clear.
Right. That's what's happening.
Okay. During the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the gold currency was dinars, and its price fluctuated amongst 8, 10, or 12 dirhams of silver. So basically, it's letting you know that during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the gold dinar, and if you was exchanging a gold dinar for silver, then that depends. You can get 8 pieces of silver, 10 pieces of silver.
Yeah, they had the
12
prices.
pieces of
Yeah, they
silver.
had the prices.
As long as you both was on the spot with it,
Yeah.
and y'all was making the exchange, and y'all can actually see it, then it could be done.
Because if somebody was to walk away or that transaction wasn't completed right there, if the value fluctuates, you could have put riba on him or he could have put riba on you.
Because remember what riba is. It's extra.
It's extra.
Yeah, it's
So
extra.
that by that
So
extra
the
being
deal
done-
has to be complete at the point of transaction. That's what we're being
Because
called
if it's
to.
not, because it may fluctuate. Now somebody got extra from the deal.
Right.
When you already agreed
and there's
on
people
it.
who live in that gray area.
Yeah,
There's
exactly.
people who wait for that gray area to show up and start doing transactions.
do.
That's
Exactly.
using the people.
Yeah, they do that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, that's why it's called usury, right?
Well, the whole Western system is based off of
Some
Yeah.
would claim that the prohibition of deferment on gold trading is valid only in the exchange of gold with gold. However, this claim is not in line with other hadiths that report the prohibition of gold, silver, and currency trading on a deferred basis. Excuse me.
All right. Now, yeah. So basically, he brings a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, from the authority of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, after he disallowed the 2 companions from dealing with the exchange of gold with silver, where one of them wants to delay the delivery of the silver. The Prophet ﷺ has said that a sell contract of silver and gold are riba, except if it is done on the spot. One party says take this, and another party says take this. So in other words, in order to do the actual contract, it must be on the spot.
Yeah.
I can't give you my gold and you can't give me your silver unless we are there handling it.
So it basically can't be like, all right, listen, take this $1,000, and then you're going to deliver my silver and gold a week later. We can't roll like that.
Well, according to this hadith, the Prophet prohibited deferred payment and delivering it even if it's an hour later.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't
You can't
matter.
do
Yeah,
it.
it could be 10
It
minutes
gotta
later.
be right there on the spot. So I mean that presents a problem for people who buy
it
with
does.
gold trading.
It does.
So one of the things is if I go to a company right now that offer gold trading online,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? One of the problems that I need to get around is if I purchase
Can
the
I get it
gold
right
from
now?
you, can I get it right now? Or do I have to wait?
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
some of these gold trading online, they make you do what we call installments. So now I have to pay you in installments in which I invested in the gold that you're selling me. And even though you might can show me the gold online, it still doesn't mean that the transaction is cool and
Yeah,
free
exactly.
from riba.
Because that still be
according to the
deferment.
hadith. Yeah, according to the hadith.
According to the hadith.
So I mean, it's really hard to get around to try to do gold trading, but there are some ways we're going to find out that you possibly might can do it, but so far it's hard to get around
Yeah, it's
without
hard,
doing
it's
it
hard.
on the spot. You got to do hand for hand. He brings another narration that makes it even more clear that Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, "Do not sell gold with silver if one of the items is not in front of you, and the transaction must be made immediately." So there gives no room for any delivery taking place.
Yeah,
It gives
exactly.
no room for that.
It
Or
removes the whole,
deferment.
it removes the whole total sales
Yeah, because it got to be done immediately.
Yeah, it removes that whole situation.
If he asks to delay the transaction process till he enters his house, then do not allow him to do so, because I am afraid that riba might happen in the transaction. So you see that right there. So I can't even walk away and say, hold on, let me go on the house real quick. I can't even do that. I have to.
Yeah.
If we're going to make this transaction right now, then I have to take.
Because one of the things that can happen, like the price could fluctuate. That's one of the things that can happen.
It's important that we as Muslims understand all of this stuff so that we don't get caught up. I know gold and silver. I'm a big fan of gold and silver.
So am I.
It's God money. We know it's intrinsic value. We talked about that last week. And I know that gold and silver is not the dominant currency, and that's the truth right now. To be honest with you, it's not the dominant currency. In other words, the dominant currency right now, which we call al-thamaniya ghaliba, that is the dollar.
Fiat currency, the dollar.
It's fiat currency.
Everywhere in the world.
Everywhere in the world. So gold and silver is not the dominant currency. Now, in an argument of people who say gold and silver is the real currency because it has this value and fiat currency doesn't have intrinsic value, yeah, that's one argument. Yeah. But it's still not the dominant currency.
It doesn't change the dominant currency. It doesn't change the offer to people.
Exactly.
The offer to people is that they use the dollar in everyday usage, and it kind of replaced the gold and the silver. You know what I'm saying? It don't have the same value, but it replaced them.
So my whole reason of bringing that up is because now if you start telling me that the best course of action for me to do is to go and start and participate in buying gold right now. If you tell me, okay, buying gold is the best thing for me to do right now. Buying silver is the best thing for me to do right now. I need to get some real currency. I have to now weigh that according to the rules and regulations of Islam. Can I do gold trading?
Yeah, exactly.
You understand? So is that the best course of action? I remember they was asking Warren Buffett. They asked him a question about the investment of gold and how he was saying that if you have a gold nugget, for example, you might have this piece of gold and you have it for 100 years, right? And that gold is still going to be the same gold, all right? Nothing else actually produces from the gold. Whereas he said if you had a form, you can actually produce on the form, and then while you produce on the form, you can buy another form. So he was saying that in terms of investing in the gold, you can't produce off of the gold like you can do off the form. The form will be a better investment than the actual gold.
Yeah, I mean, gold in this environment that we in would be a better place. It'll be a better value, the whole value, like a placeholder for value.
Back something up.
Exactly. It'll be because it doesn't crash like that. So it'll be a good thing for that. But as far as if I had a whole gold bar in my house, like what I'm gonna do with that gold bar on an everyday basis, like I can't go to Aldi with it, I can't go to Fresh Grocers with it. I would still have to take that and liquidate it into something else to be able to use it.
So now this is what I'm trying to say. Is buying gold and silver right now, investing in gold and silver right now, Coach, is that's the best form of action for us right now?
Get coach, man.
We gotta get coach.
You gotta get coach.
He jumped right into the hot seat. He jumped to the hot seat.
He jumped back in the hot seat, man.
Hold up, I don't know how deep y'all read. Hold up.
You gotta put coach in the hot
Everybody
seat,
gonna hold
man.
up?
No, seriously. Would you say?
All right. So far, I don't know how much more the article we're gonna read.
We only covered 2 hadiths. Pretty much saying the same thing, emphasizing the fact that you have to do it on
looking at the ways that investing into gold is being presented nowadays. It seems like it goes against a lot of these Islamic principles. However, Brother Yassine is on.
No, let's apologize for that one. Okay, in our system, we have an immediate possession of the gold. I have and can demonstrate. In fact, I made a video to show this is that is available on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, brother Yassine Ahmed, he said, hold up. He says, brothers, our system, we have immediate possession of the gold.
Yeah.
Does you mean that if I have the buy the gold from you, when I buy it, you can literally give me physically in my hand at that second?
All right. You know what? We need to do a separate show specifically on how to invest in gold in modern times.
And you could probably actually
more specifically, and brother Yassine Ahmed, he's one of the brothers that I'm thinking of that he's giving comments now. May Allah bless him. It seems like he has a lot of these details. Mm-hmm. So maybe we can bring him on. Maybe we can do a guest, and let him explain the details of how to maneuver in today's times, because it's looking like it can be problematic when you read the hadith and you see the Islamic principles, and then you see the ways that we're being the conventional ways that we're going about buying and selling gold via the internet. Can you buy gold on the internet? Can you wait for the gold to be shipped to you? Can you buy gold without being there? This concept of a wakil for the gold,
Yeah,
the agent,
Yeah.
all of these different conditions have to be present in order for us to make gold transactions. Do you have access to the gold? So we're going to answer these questions, and it seems like our brother C.R.E.A.M is ready. He's ready for these questions. So we'll bring him on and we'll make that a special show. But do I believe that investing in gold nowadays, just to get back to the question, I do believe that investing in gold and using gold as a currency is the best thing to do. I believe so. Is it practical? Back to my original, point.
All right, so what Yassine is saying is that they are not investing in gold. Actually, what they're doing is transferring from a debt system to a wealth system. But what I find that can be a little bit problematic for me, I'm just saying, is that when I think they still don't have the world backing of that. It's not a dominant currency. So even if I get a group of society and say, okay, us group, this small little group, we're going to use gold and silver for our system, and we're going to buy and sell with this gold and silver. It's still not used on a larger scale
As a medium of trade.
As a medium of
Well, what would have to
exchange.
happen, the brother Yassine, right? He would have to now explain, okay, when you say we're leaving a debt system, which I agree, and going to the gold standard and using that as a system, he would have to explain how that is practical in 2020. How would that be practical in everyday usage? How would we replace the practicality of the dollar in everyday usage? How would that turn into the gold being that practical?
And it goes back to the concept of currency is your liquidity. So you invest in your assets, you invest in your investments, your commodities. Gold is a commodity, silver is a commodity, and it's also used as a currency. Where we're coming into this funnel is understanding how fiat currency plays in this conversation when it doesn't have an intrinsic value and is backed by a system that is debt, that is based off of debt. So we're trying to fit a circle
Beliefs
into a
and
square.
agreements. Basically, beliefs and
Yeah,
agreements.
we're trying to fit a circle into a square or a square into a circle. But when you separate currency from your investments, when you separate your assets from your money, so we're trying to remove, what's the difference between money and currency? Remember, what's assets, what's liabilities? Remember, we're trying to navigate through this, and we're at a space now where we're trying to see what can we invest our energy into for the best return, so that it doesn't lose value over time, so that it doesn't conflict with the government, so that they want to take it from us over time, so that we're not fooled to imagine that what we have is worth anything. That's what we're trying to identify right now.
I understand that. One of the things that you have to understand is that any currency to be in play, to be moved as a unit, whereas though it can be dominant or something like that, it's going to take power, and that power involves the ruler or the government.
Right.
You cannot separate. If you look through history, historically, it shows you that any government or body of people or ruler that wanted to put this currency in place, they take care of the economic movement. Starting a currency transitional system without having a government backing or having a ruler backing, I don't know how that really looks. Because then now we're going to be going neck to neck with the government.
But what you're going to end up doing is you're going to end up investing your money into private stock that increases in value, that you're going to have to, it has to be easily liquefiable when it's time to go and spend money at the cash register.
Yeah.
So we're just trying to go from the ideal saving scenario to and how that interchanges in and out of society when it's time to spend money.
Paul and Alan Greenspan, if I got some statements from them that kind of back up what you're saying, but also supports this whole gold movement. Being as though that's what we having this conversation. And actually, it's a deep conversation, and I think C.R.E.A.M is going to like this though. But one of the things that he says is that he says and this book was by Ron Paul in The Case for Gold, right? And I think it was 1982 was published in 1982. And he says, under the gold standard, the amount of credit that an economy can support is determined by the economy's tangible assets. Since every credit instrument is ultimately a claim on some tangible assets, but today's government bonds are not backed by tangible wealth, but only by a government's promise to pay out future tax revenues. In the absence of gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. This is the shabby secret of the welfare states. Tirades against gold, deficient spending is simply a scheme for the hidden confiscation of wealth. Gold stands in the way of this insidious process. Now, he goes on and he brings another statement of Alan Greenspan in 1966. And this is called, he wrote in The Gold and Monetary Freedom before, obviously it was sucked into the Federal Reserve. He said, in the absence of gold standard, there is no way to protect savings from confiscation through inflation. There is no safe store value without gold. He said, if everyone decided, for example, to convert all his paper bank deposits to silver or gold, bank deposits will lose their purchasing power automatically, and government-created bank credit will be worthless. And that's Alan Greenspan.
So our belief is what's holding up the dollar. Our belief in government and our belief in the value of the dollar. And if we stopped believing in that dollar and we put our beliefs behind things that were more tangible, more had more intrinsic value, like gold and silver, we could crash the system doing that. However, people already believe in the dollar, and it's already customary. So you're going against something that that pretty much has been put into play before we were even here. Mm-hmm. So to take a position against a dollar bill wouldn't be wise. However, to educate ourselves to understand that there's no restored value there is where we can start to learn how to circumvent the system.
And we're doing that by coloring it in with what we are bound by, which is Islam, how to behave and maneuver. So we're doing that. And Islam even has an outlook and a position on fiat currency.
It does.
Which this article is going to shed some light on.
And those hadith mention tangible things that are considered tangible, like the barley, the salt, the silver, gold. All those things are considered tangible.
And if we tried to do something that would crash the system, that would contradict the government that's in play. And that's where you'll start to see us bumping heads, and you'll start to see certain laws coming out to restrict certain movements, like what they did with the gold when they took the gold off.
Turn
the
your gold in.
Turn your gold in. Mm-hmm. And so these things would happen so that gold wouldn't compete with the dollar bill.
Because the dollar bill couldn't compete with gold.
Because it couldn't compete with, and they already knew that. Yeah. So I don't want to get into a space where we're having a theoretical battle about gold versus silver, instead of living in the reality that it's already like that. We already believe, and we believe not only in the dollar, but we also believe in our government, because they're doing the deals. They're creating those trade agreements. They're working with those other governments that allows you to travel all over the world with your blue passport and your greenbacks, and you get whatever you want at their market value.
But it ain't so much so just the belief in the government. It's the simple fact that the Muslims are not in the driver's seat. We spoke about this last week. The reality is we aren't in the driver's seat no more. We're not. We're not running the world currency right now. The dominant currency is the note, whether you like it or not.
Anything else.
It's the note. Yeah. Now, you can educate yourself about how flimsy the note is, or how, it doesn't have to hold a store value, or it's just a claim and a debt. You could do that. Mm-hmm. And you can say, I believe that the note and all of the debt and everything is ribawi. That's an argument you can use. Yeah. But the reality is that still won't stop you and I from having to deal with the greenback.
Oh, the order is established.
So now this gold, this money take the ruling of gold and silver.
I mean that's an argument, but I don't think like last week when we explained.
Is it a ribawi item?
We explained last week. We explained last week. Last week,
hey, he gonna put you in the hot seat, man.
Last week we covered that at the end of the day, to sum everything up, there is difference of opinion, and they are valid opinions. I'm not going to argue with one brother over another.
Even if I don't agree with it,
even if I don't agree with it,
it's still valid. Yeah.
But what I want people to educate themselves is riba is still real wherever what form of currency is in play. If those items are ribawi items, then you need to know how to deal with that.
And this is not a right or wrong discussion. I
Discussion,
think
yeah, exactly.
it is doing what is most correct and repelling as much harm as you possibly can.
Yeah.
How to move.
How to move. And that's pretty much what I want to do. Like we said before, financial education leads to financial transformation. All right? So if you are educated properly on how finances actually work, and for Muslims, we need to understand two sets of systems, not just the Western set of systems. We need to understand what does Islam says about transactions. I mean, that's primary.
That way you can move in the Western system.
That way
how
you can
should.
move within the Western system. Now, for those who want to say, okay, I have something with gold, that's good. For those who say I have something, but know about the intricate details.
And we're not here comparing. This is not, you know,
It's
what's
not
the best thing
comparing,
to do, worst thing to do. It's just literacy. What's our options? What's out there? What can I do? Because just you know, up until recently, I wouldn't even think about saving anything other than dollar bills for my savings.
Yeah.
I'm saving dollars.
No doubt.
So just knowing that there's other forms of currency, other forms of wealth, other forms of monetary value that you can use to store wealth in, to store your value of wealth in, that literacy just gives you some flexibility. It shows you how to move.
Yeah, no doubt.
It gives you your arms, your legs. So, you know, and I do honestly, I believe that the gold is God's money. Silver is God's money.
I believe
that's the
greatest currency on the planet.
I believe that's the greatest currency on the planet, and it's been here and it will be here. But we're not living. We're living in a system right now that has moved away from that. And what does that look like? How do we maneuver in light of that? How do we minimize our losses?
Yeah. So this hadith, this narration was actually mentioned in the Muwatta. For those who don't know, the Muwatta is like Sahih Bukhari before Sahih Bukhari, by Imam Malik. It's one of those books that was actually one of the first of the books was collecting of hadiths. And this statement of Umar radiallahu anhu, what we said, do not sell gold with silver, or if one of the items is not in front of you, and the transaction must be made immediately. Even now we comment on this hadith. He says that the ijma of all the fuqaha based on the authentic hadith that it is forbidden to sell gold on a deferred basis, both in term of payment and delivery of the gold. So he mentioned that there is unanimous agreement that you cannot sell gold under no circumstances or deal in gold on a deferred basis. In other words, I can't wait to get the transaction. I can't receive the payment or the price for it on a later basis. If we're going to deal with the gold right now, then we must deal with the payment right now.
Yeah.
I mean, he says the scholars have agreed on the permissibility of selling those items that are ribawi with another ribawi items on defer or credit basis and at different values, providing that the items have different reasons, such as the sell contract between gold and wheat, silver and barley, and others. They also opine that it is forbidden to exchange those items that incur riba of the same type, such as selling gold with gold on a deferred basis, and it is also forbidden to exchange those items that incur riba on of the same types by cash or on the spot, but not in a per in terms of weight, values, or measure. The items that incur riba should not be separated during the actual contract, all right, before the settlement of the trading on the spot and in cash. When the trading items have similar reasons, currency, for instance, the exchange of gold with silver and wheat with barley, they also have agreed that the exchange of items with different rates and values is permissible in the case where the traded item, ribawi item, are not of similar types, similar such as 1 kilogram of wheat with 2 kilograms of barley. If the transaction is done on a spot basis, there is no dispute amongst the scholars regarding this issue, because these, as we said, they are intricate matters because the hadith bound us to them. If you want to sell any item that can incur riba, whether it's of the same type or if it's of different, it still have to be done on a basics hand to hand.
It just keeps bringing this question to my mind.
What's that?
Can the technology of today, being on live, cutting the camera on live, and trying to do the transaction there, do you think that there will be some exceptions to the rule in this scenario because of technology? It's a question. I don't know.
Well, you know why it would still scare me to do it that way? And I'm not saying you're wrong, right? That could be, some scholars may make the okay for that type because you can see it. I still can't touch it. Like, seeing something up close is different, even with a camera. Like, You know what I'm saying? I can still see the flaws in something. I may not be able to see it from the camera.
So technology can't fully replace contact.
Yeah, I mean, I can't.
Keep it
Me
real.
personally, I can't see how it can fully replace that. I mean, because literally, if you got this, I can literally open this up now and look at it.
To add some color to what Issa is saying. Think about it. 4 witnesses when it comes to Zina. You need 4 witnesses, eyewitnesses.
Yeah.
Can you use cameras as the witness?
They could be changed.
No, you can't.
Yeah, they can be changed.
In the court of law, Islamically Sharia, you cannot use cameras as the witnesses for the, even if you caught it on tape, even if you recorded the whole thing, that would not be used in the Sharia court, the whole ground. But that's just one angle. Another angle, you still can't get around of the Johnny on the spot. You can get around it if you have an agent. So if I'm on live and Issa is on live, he sees the gold coin, I sees it, we weighs it, we look at the scale, we got it, I'm looking at it, he sees my money or whatever, but I have an agent that's on the ground, that's there, that can buy that gold from you at that moment, and he have my permission to do the trade. That's cool.
He's checking it for me.
He's acting as a wakil on my behalf.
Exactly.
And he can do it, and he has authorized to do it.
And that's
then
what-
that's way.
And that way you can use the technology because now you still got your agent on the ground there.
And that's what happened when I developed the varsity jacket in Pakistan. Riz's cousin was in Pakistan. We were doing a transaction via messenger, but he was there checking the fabric, checking the leather, checking the factory conditions, making sure that everything was correct. And he acted as our liaison or wakil. Although we weren't there, he was there, and then he was able to relay the information back. And then he showed us things, but like you said, even when he showed us with the camera, we're still asking him, okay, I see it, but what you think? I see it, but what you think?
So-
You know, and then and when we actually went there, on another occasion when I actually went there, it was totally different than what I was being shown on the phone through emails and stuff like that. So just through experience, I see exactly the benefits of the wakil situation.
And also you got to think about it. Even though gold and silver has been sidelined, and it could be used, as the brother Yassine is giving us some insight here, may Allah reward him, that it can be used in every country, that they still recognize its value, and that certain places you can still, it's still not the dominant currency though. And see, what I mean by dominant currency in the terms that it's not used on a worldwide scale as the
American-
go-to transaction.
Like the American
currency.
dollar bill is.
And even though inside the
It's not.
Constitution, it's still literally a currency in the Constitution. And literally every state has the right to accept it as currency. Like if I really wanted to have gold coins, that's literally a currency. I can go into a Walmart and use it as a currency. But
see-
people order it's not like that.
But listen, but they're not doing it.
They're not doing it.
So the point again, you still can't run against, and this is what the artist was going to explain to you about the dominant currency that plays a role Islamically.
And the government controls
You
exactly
still
what the
can't.
currency is.
Yeah, how you going to run against that? I mean, you still can probably do it if they allow you to do it, because
Yeah.
evidently they allow you to do some type of trade
Yeah, with
in
the gold,
transaction
yeah,
with
with
the
gold.
gold and the silver.
Yeah, they do.
But it's not the dominant currency that you can actually use.
It's not in the streets in the orf every day.
Now here it is. We have to get to it. In the current context, paper money is a valid currency and is based on the ruling of gold as agreed by the Majma Fiqh, Fatwa Councils, and International Fiqh Organization. Thus, it is forbidden to trade gold on a deferred basis as it involves riba. The postponement, all right, can occur in the following 2 situations, all right? 1, the payment is made first and the gold will be delivered later. 2, the gold is already received, but the payment is delayed and is paid by installment or lump sum after the event of the contract. Both transactions are clearly against the above hadith and it involves riba. Why? Because it's not Johnny on the spot. And that's what we keep saying. You cannot avoid that. There's a reason why the Prophet ﷺ said on the spot. So that's something to look at.
It says when did what change?
Getting away from the gold and going into the dollar bill. I mean,
Well, we already dealt with that
I mean, we're
when
not
it
empowered.
changed. Yeah.
When the Muslims stopped being the world dominating power,
Yeah.
and the dollar bill became the go-to currency, the Muslims kind of went along.
Well, actually,
instead of standing up for the dirham and the dinar.
Actually, you can go back to the Ottoman Empire. Once the Ottoman Empire pretty much fell and crashed, and then that's when you've seen the remnants of dealing with the paper money coming into play. That's when gold and silver start being the dominant currency.
Well, you've seen every king,
but it's
on
still
the
a
planet,
currency.
when they used to do
a
stuff,
dominant currency.
when they used to do stuff as kings and queens, they would come with boatloads of gold and take the gold off the ship and give it to the other people, and that's how they would do trade. Yeah. The paper money came in much later.
Yeah, but still, with the Ottoman Empire in play,
It kept
it as a currency that's being used, a coin.
Because they were considered a world power at the time.
Once that crashed, normally they came and they started the remnants of the paper money start to come in, and then all of that start play and became a dominant currency. Yeah. I mean, gold and silver is still currency. I mean, I'm like I said, I'm a fan of gold and silver. That's God's money. I mean, it's been around for too many years.
And you can still use gold and silver to buy land in America.
It should be a part of your portfolio, 100%.
100%. Actually, if you look on the top 10 things on stock exchange, when we was investing in stock exchange, they mentioned gold and silver is one of the things that I invested in. So you're still going to buy it. I mean, you're still going to buy it.
You can still listen. You can literally still take the gold amount for whatever land. You can go to somebody who's selling land and give them gold. They'll accept it. Right now in 2020.
You can trade commodities for commodities.
Yep.
And we don't think like that. We don't even think about that. We just think about, I got to get the money to get what I want. But it's like, no, if I can accumulate something else to trade for what I want.
But see, my problem is this. How do we get the gold? Because if we're talking about gold trading online, unless we can go straight to a facility or a place where there's mining, where it can actually be done, how can we get the gold?
We covered
we covered that. We covered the President Nixon. He removed the standard. We covered that. We covered that last week. Actually, the week before that.
And then the Brent Woods Act brought the petrodollar.
Yeah, we covered that. We cover all of that. We are up to date with you. We understand that the fiat currency is definitely, you could poke many holes in it, but gold and silver is not the dominant currency.
And we with you with the gold.
Yeah, the gold and silver is not the dominant currency. So right now, I'm not going to, like Warren Buffett was saying, I'm not going to say, okay, invest in gold. I want to know Islamically, if I invest in the gold, how can I do it? And that's what we're trying to explain now.
Is it a way to get, to go somewhere right now and physically buy gold from somebody and give it to me on the spot?
And every way that's been presented to me thus far, we could be wrong.
Yep.
It falls into these prohibitions from the Sharia.
That's all I'm saying. That's what I'm looking at right now. I'm looking at me and say, okay, unless I got a guy who got a mine or a guy that got a lot of gold and silver that I can go right to him, or I can have a wakil on my behalf that would deal with him.
And what's going to stop those businesses from doing the same thing that the government did? All right, look, your money's good. We got your gold. That thing you have represents the gold that you have with us. But then something happens to their business and they go away, and then you come back and they got a whole new business there.
So Islamically, it might not. I don't know. Islamically, you have to look at that. Can we maneuver in that way? And that's one of the points. We just wanted to bring that to mind to people that, okay, we talked about gold and silver being the best type of currency, and we talked about that last week. So I wanted to follow that up in this week
to give us more details on
how to invest in the gold and silver.
Not just blanket, invest in gold. But now,
no,
how does the Muslim invest in gold?
How do the Muslim invest in gold? What do we do to get the gold? You know what I mean? And it's already a rule of thumb that you must know that most gold and silver trading companies online are schemes and pansies. This is what our researchers have led us to know, a lot of them. But Islamically, when we look in light of dealing with them gold and silver companies on an up and up, we still have to look, how can we do it without riba? All right? Now, conditions of buying and selling gold. The rules pertaining to buying and selling gold is also known as the rules of sarf. This is because gold is a ribawi item because of its nature being a currency. The conditions for trading it are similar to exchanging the ribawi items prescribed in the above hadith. According to some Shafi'i scholars, there are 3 conditions. 1, it must be the same weight or value of gold as exchanged with gold or silver with silver for currency. Ringgit with ringgit, it should be as the same value. 2, hulul, the exchange must be immediately in cash, not in the form of credit or khiyar, cooling off period. 3, the exchange and delivery of good and price must be immediate in the aqd, meaning the contract session. Still can't get around. It's still showing that it gotta be
Johnny on the spot.
It gotta be Johnny on the spot.
You gotta be Johnny on the spot. And how do you get around it? Because if that's not there, and I can trust you, you could be my blood brother, and I can trust you with my life. But you still gotta be Johnny on the spot.
You gotta be Johnny on the spot if you want to abide by what the law said.
He says I'm at a disadvantage in this platform. Now we with you, Sheikh. We're not debating. You know more than we do because you're in the field. But we can't get around this evidence. So you have to now bring evidence to us to overwhelm what we're reading right now, because
there is a loophole.
I get a lot of calls. A lot of brothers are inviting me to these gold group economic platforms.
And we're for gold. We're saying that
for
people
gold.
should get gold, but how do we do that in the system that we're in?
Kayfiya, what's the how?
How do we do it in the system that we're in?
And how can you avoid riba? And if it's safe? Because the thing about buying the gold online is you got to show me how we can avoid deferment. The C.R.E.A.M. How can we avoid deferment? Is it Johnny on the spot? So if I go buy and invest in carrot bars, for example, how do they set it up? They got different packages that you can get into the carrot bars thing. But you have more knowledge of that because you dealt with carrot bars. So you can explain to us, and we can, hopefully get some light from him, and he can show us that no, carrot bars do have a system where it doesn't go against the Sharia, and we actually can use it.
And we'll welcome that.
And we'll welcome that. So that we're not arguing or going back and forth. We want you to know that we'll welcome that. If you do have some insight information, you've been doing this for a long time, you could be able to shed some light and give us some more clarity how to get around it. But everything that we have came across so far in our research,
It prohibits that style of business.
it prohibits that style of business. Okay, yeah. Once you show us the system and that it's not complying with the Sharia, and that we come back and see that if it's complying to the system, then we can do that as well.
You'll get a free endorsement, brother. You know what I'm saying?
Actually,
we'll put you right on the spot. You feel
Actually,
me? I'm gonna be the first to sign up.
Actually, we invite you to the show to actually do something and fill some color lines in it.
Yeah, exactly.
After we provide the basis of riba here. So that once we all get an understanding what this look like and how it looked, then everybody can say, okay, yeah, what the brother is saying is actually true, and they can weigh it for themselves and say that is compliant.
Because we're trying to get people off of the fiat currency to gold.
But we need to know, what is the alternative? What is the reasonable alternative?
Exactly.
Because we're still regular people in society, and I need to be able to go to Walmart, and I need them to take whatever I pull out my pocket.
All right. Last but not least, we're going to mention
you
this.
are.
And we get ready to stop here. Last but not least, the permissible methods of buying and selling gold to avoid riba. Okay? Alhamdulillah, we have you on, inshallah. He said the permissible methods of buying and selling gold to avoid riba. This might answer some of your questions. Riba on gold trading can happen in two situations. Firstly, deferment of the delivery. Secondly, the deferment in the payment. Therefore, to avoid riba, the transaction must be on the spot. These are some suggestions to overcome falling into riba. 1, the payment can be made through cash, banker's check, debit or credit account, and the Sharia compliant credit card. The buyer can borrow money from the third parties to make a cash payment. All right? You want to elaborate on that?
Finish reading the whole thing.
Okay. Now, number 2, the delivery of gold must be on the spot via cash by the buyer or the agent, of the buyer. 3, hire an agent to purchase the gold. By hiring an agent, riba can be avoided. The buyer shall appoint any person to make the sale contract and the actual cabal, the acceptance of that contract. For example, an Islamic bank that deals with the gold trading, companies or individuals who are actively participating in the gold trading can be appointed as the agent on behalf of their customers. Besides, this wakala contract is flexible because the buyer does not have to do the actual contract of sale contract and acceptance. It also can resolve the issue of online gold trading. This is permissible as long as the agent does not do the transaction on a deferred basis. So if you got a bank serving as your agent, for example, and your bank is pretty much dealing with the company right on the spot for you. Yeah. They're not deferring the payment, and they're actually doing all of the dirty work for you, pretty much, the transaction and everything. That's okay. You can give them that power to do that. And that is a permissible way to avoid the actual riba. But notice what's being taken in place. It's still on the spot because the bank is serving as the agent to do the deal with the company on the spot.
And they're getting the gold.
Exactly. Another way is, we already did that. We mentioned 3 ways. The actual on the spot, having a wakala. So I've seen that the wakala is the one. Yeah. The seller who acts as an agent can change fees in each transaction. The fees must be known and agreed by both parties. The agent may request that if he or she can buy the gold with a lower price, then the assessed money will become his or her commission or incentive.
This is how we get money right here in this situation. It's a consignment deal. So if you make the agreement with the owner of the gold, and you tell and the owner of the gold says, okay, look, all I want you to do is get this amount or buy it for this amount. Anything under it or anything over it, you keep it. That's your incentive. So that's room for you to make money. There's room for you to win as long as you and the owner of the gold have an agreement. So that's basically what that's saying right there, and that's very important to know, because sometimes you'll make a person feel criminal. If they go out and you say, look, take care of this for me. This is what it should cost. That's what it should cost.
You get at a lower price.
And you get at a lower price, and you're able to pocket the money, and make something extra for yourself. That's allowable in Islam if both parties agree. But in our culture, a person will be made to feel somewhat conniving for doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
The conniving part is not communicating it that's what you want to do.
That's the issue.
Your intent.
Yeah, that's your
It
issue.
also goes with buying houses. A lot of that happens. A lot of people buy houses wholesale or consign the houses.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that agreement, you have a lot of flexibility to earn your commissions. So, and this is what this is saying, that we have the ability to do.
Alhamdulillah. So, I mean, we're going to, reconvene, but this was something good that we can bring. I mean, it actually presents. We're just trying to broaden our horizon a little bit Islamically, okay? What can we do? We know gold and silver is the best currency.
Yeah, it's God's money.
No, I mean,
And to your first point, you can borrow the money from a third person to make your transaction on the spot, and then owe that person the money that you owe them.
now look at that. That's even beautiful. So you can do that as well. So in other words, I got the third party that is actually in contact with the company that can do it, because I'm not there in the vicinity, and I borrow the money from the third party, and he does the transaction for me, and I just owe the third party for it. Then I just avoid the actual riba.
You can even rent your gold.
There you go. That's another point there. We're renting your gold at. So this deals with it. We can't do all of it. It's a lot.
You know what I'm
We can't do
saying?
the whole article.
I want to stop talking, man.
There's a lot of ways to get around it. Alhamdulillah. There's a lot of ways to get around it.
It is.
But the beauty about this is that I hope everyone that was paying attention, that y'all understand what riba is and how important riba really is in our contracts. I mean, in our sales contract and our transactions.
Yeah.
Your everyday life, you have to really look at that. How can I avoid riba? All right, the fiat currency, we're going to deal in that in detail. We're going to go into some more of that with the fiat currency before we start getting to the real nitty-gritty thing. I know people want to know, well, okay, how I start making money during this recession?
And then it's
about
important for us to get into the realities, the real reality of what fiat currency is, because we can really leave a lot of money on the table, because if you look at fiat currency from the outside, Muslims can't go nowhere near it. You're buying debt. But that's not the case. So having knowledge, knowing how to maneuver,
but in actuality,
can help you minimize harm.
Actuality, that's not even the case, because Muslim can go near the fiat currency since it's been in play, because the ulama has already ruled and deemed it being one of those.
Well,
things
that's under the pretense that there's something backing it.
Yeah.
See, right now, the money that we're talking about now, conceptually, nothing's backing it but the beliefs of the people. How much weight does that hold? So we need to learn more about fiat currency.
Comes into play.
The order comes into play. That's still one of my personal questions. How much weight does the order hold? Because if you can't make someone out to be a deceiver if we all believe the same thing. Yeah. It just puts that out there.
Cold trying to crack a can of worms.
It just puts that out there.
Or you're forced.
Or you're forced because of weakness. Again, the Muslims are not in the driver's seat. So what are we held accountable for? How do we work within that framework, because we don't have the power? And if we put these stipulations on ourselves because of the ideal scenarios, we may be losing some of what's available to us.
And think about it. How many of us went to school and even have any classes that dealt with money? Period. How many of us even know about money, or just from an Islamic perspective and un-Islamic perspective, Western finance or even Islamic? We don't.
We gotta wrap this up. I'm trying to open the store back up.
Mashallah.
I got customers outside in the window.
Hey man,
So
you gotta be financial literacy, huh?
I'm trying to apply the principles.
So we wrapped it up, and stay tuned for the next episode, inshallah.
Yes.
So that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, stay tuned for the next episode. We're not going to be on an exact schedule every Thursday. See, today's Sunday, we went live. But every week, look for the push notification. We'll be up at least once a week.
And make sure that you tune in and accept the membership for the Night Shift podcast. Hopefully we can start going live from there once we get the members up. we will be conducting and transferring the show over to that actual platform.
And don't forget, we're at the Search and Rescue General Store located 3101 West Glenwood. We encourage online shopping and in-store pickup, but we are here on the weekends 9 to 4, one person in at a time, and we have free items out front for those
Thursday
in
to
need.
Sunday.
From Thursday to Sunday, and we have
Yeah.
free items outside for those people that are in need. Canned goods, clothes, different items, something that you could probably, reinvest, so knowledge as well.
نعم سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.